It's March 6th, 2025. You are deep in the woods of Plymouth, Massachusetts. It is quiet, the air is just freezing.
Right.
And there are two hunters navigating this narrow deer trail. It's the kind of routine walk they've probably taken, countless times.
Oh, totally. Just a standard morning out in the woods.
But they are just off Route 3 North, right between exits 13 and 14. So through the bare trees, they can hear the constant mechanical hum of highway traffic.
Yeah, that drone of the cars going by.
And they can actually see the asphalt of the breakdown lane just a short distance away. So as they're walking, they spot this shape on the ground up ahead.
And this is where the psychology of it is so interesting, because at first glance, the human brain engages in what cognitive scientists call predictive processing.
Right, because when you are near a highway, your brain basically just expects to see highway debris.
Exactly. It categorizes this weird anomalous shape as, maybe a discarded plastic jug.
Or like a piece of faded tire tread or something.
Yeah, it acts as this cognitive buffer. Your brain literally forces the environment to make sense based on context.
It's trying to protect you.
It is. It's shielding you from the reality of what you were actually looking at, right up until you were just too close to deny it.
And when these hunters stepped closer, that cognitive buffer completely shattered, because scattered right there among the dry leaves was a portion of a human skull.
Just an incredibly jarring moment.
A 911 call is placed within minutes, obviously. And suddenly, that quiet deer trail becomes the focal point of this massive, haunting investigation.
It changes everything in an instant.
It really does. So today we are taking a deep dive into our source material, The Silent Trail, the mystery of Sandra Crispo.
It's such a complex case.
It is. Our mission today is to reconstruct this truly baffling timeline of a woman who seemingly just vanished into thin air.
And we're going to explore how that single discovery in the woods, years later, fundamentally changed the entire forensic reality of the case.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to understand how this mystery operates, we actually have to start the end of the timeline.
Right, with the hunters.
Exactly. That discovery in 2025 is the catalyst that rips open a years-old cold case and forces investigators to completely reevaluate everything they thought they knew.
It really is the defining fulcrum of the case. Following that 911 call, Massachusetts state troopers arrived and secured the area.
They had to tape it all off.
Yeah, standard protocol. They examined the scene and verified that the remains were, in fact, human.
Right.
And what follows is what you do at any potential crime scene. The troopers establish a perimeter and initiate this really methodical grid search of the surrounding woods.
Because they're assuming there has to be more. Right. They are looking for the rest of the skeletal structure.
Exactly. They are scanning the soil for shreds of fabric, maybe a shoe or like metal from a zipper.
Or a phone.
Yes, a phone. Any secondary indicator that can provide some context as to how this skull ended up there.
But the grid search yielded absolutely zero secondary indicators. Nothing. No clothing, no other bones, just the skull fragment.
Just silence.
Now, let me push back on this for a second. On the initial assumption that this isolation implies something incredibly sinister. Because I was reading through the environmental context of these woods.
Okay, what were you thinking?
Couldn't this just be, standard animal scavenging? We know coyotes and other wildlife in New England are notorious for disturbing remains.
Oh, they definitely are.
They carry parts of them for miles sometimes. So why is the isolation of this single skull fragment so anomalous?
Well, what's fascinating here is the mechanics of forensic taphonomy.
Taphonomy, right. That's the study of how organisms decay and disperse in an environment, isn't it?
That's exactly it. And yes, scavengers move remains, but they operate through very predictable mechanical patterns.
Okay, so they leave a trail.
Essentially, yes. When an animal like a coyote moves a piece of remains, they leave satellite evidence. You will find drag marks or localized soil disruption.
Like scratched up dirt.
Right, or tufts of hair caught on brambles, or smaller, more easily transportable bones scattered along their path.
Oh, I see. A scavenger doesn't meticulously clean up an area after they're done.
Exactly. They are messy. So the complete and total absence of any other physical evidence or satellite remains in that grid search strongly implies that the rest of the body was never there to begin with.
Wow.
It suggests the skull fragment was introduced to that specific location completely independent of a full body.
So someone just dropped it there. That's chilling. So the physical search of those woods reaches this absolute parameter. The troopers have a skull fragment, but the environment simply refuses to give them a narrative.
It's a dead end physically.
Right, which means the investigation has to completely pivot. They move out of the forest and into the laboratory to try and give this skull a name.
And that is a whole other kind of struggle.
It is. And that leads us to this timeline gap that initially may be due a double take. The skull goes to the medical examiner's office as this unanswered question.
Right.
And eventually, a crucial decision is made to bring in the FBI to assist with advanced DNA testing. But they didn't get an identity until May of 2026.
That's a long time.
It's a 14-month gap from March 2025 to May 2026. When I first looked at this, my immediate thought was, this must be an institutional backlog.
Like it's just sitting on a desk somewhere.
Exactly, just a piece of evidence sitting on a shelf waiting for a technician who's overworked. But digging into the sources, the delay wasn't bureaucracy at all, it was chemistry.
Precisely. It is a story of just profound forensic complexity.
What makes it so complex?
Well, when you are dealing with a skeletal fragment that has been exposed to the elements, particularly the really aggressive fluctuating seasons of a New England forest, you are fighting a microscopic war against degradation.
Because it's outside in the rain and the snow.
Yeah, and people don't realize this, but bone is not solid stone. It is actually highly porous.
It acts like a microscopic sponge.
Exactly. So over the span of years, rainwater washes highly acidic soil straight into those tiny pores.
The sources mentioned humic acid, right?
Yes, humic acid from decaying pine needles and leaves.
And that acidity essentially acts like chemical fizzers, doesn't it? It literally snips the rungs of the DNA ladder into smaller and smaller pieces.
It completely shatters the genetic material.
That's incredible.
So to extract a viable profile from bone that has weathered, multiple winters, freeze-thaw cycles, and all that soil acidity, scientists cannot just run a standard swab.
They can't just take a Q-tip to it.
No, not at all. They literally have to pulverize the bone into dust.
Oh, wow.
And then they use these specialized chemical baths to separate the fragmented DNA from the calcium matrix of the bone itself.
While simultaneously trying to filter out those humic acids, right? Because I read those acids actively inhibit the enzymes used in DNA sequencing.
You've got it. It is just this painstaking process of trying to find enough intact fragments to glue back together to form a recognizable profile.
It's like finding a shredded, waterlogged document in a forest and having to chemically reconstruct the ink before you can even attempt to read the letters.
That's a perfect analogy.
And when the laboratory finally managed to reconstruct those letters, the name that came back changed the gravity of the entire investigation.
It changed everything.
The remains belong to 54-year-old Sandra Crispo. And the critical factor here is that she had not gone missing a few months before the hunters found her.
No.
She had vanished nearly 7 years earlier.
The DNA match is a monumental scientific triumph, truly. But it immediately deepens the geographical and temporal mystery.
It makes it so much more complicated.
It does. You suddenly have an irrefutable scientific link connecting a skull found off Route 3 in 2025 directly to this seemingly mundane sequence of events in August of 2019.
Right, so we have her name, which means we have to rewind the clock. We have to go back almost 7 years to understand the starting point of this trajectory.
We have to look at how she ended up there.
Exactly. So let's transport you, the listener, back to August 7th, 2019. Sandra is settling into a new home in Hanson, Massachusetts.
A fresh start.
Yeah. On this specific Wednesday, a relative drops her off at her house. And there is a crucial logistical detail that we have to focus on here.
Very crucial.
Sandra's car is currently in the mechanic shop. She has no vehicle.
Right.
She is entirely reliant on her family for transportation. From an external perspective, everything seems completely routine.
Just a normal day.
But 2 days later, on August 9th, she is scheduled to watch her grandchildren.
Which was something she loved to do.
Exactly. But she fails to show up, and her family is utterly unable to reach her.
And for a grandmother with an established pattern of devotion to her grandchildren, a missed visit without a phone call is an immediate, glaring anomaly.
It's a huge red flag.
It represents a hard break in her behavioral baseline. People don't just abandon their routines for no reason.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you have to analyze the logistics of her physical confinement.
The geography of her situation?
Right. I think of it as an island analogy. Having your car in the shop, especially when you are in a brand new neighborhood where you might not know the transit routes or even the neighbors, restricts your geographic footprint drastically.
Never stranded.
It essentially severs your connection to the wider network of the city.
Yeah.
You cannot just leave on a whim.
No, you'd have to walk or call a cab, which leaves a digital footprint.
Exactly. The mechanics of her situation meant she was anchored to that house. So how does a stranded person with no autonomous means of travel simply vanish from their own residence?
That logistical contradiction was the central friction point in the immediate aftermath of her disappearance.
It caused a lot of tension.
It did. When the family filed the missing persons report, law enforcement initiated an assessment of her home. They evaluated the physical circumstances.
And early on, the authorities made a very public suggestion. They stated there was no sign of foul play.
Which is a very specific law enforcement heuristic.
What does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah. Well, when they say no sign of foul play, they are looking for mechanical evidence of violence. Smashed door frames, overturned furniture, biological evidence.
Blood, things like that.
Right. They are looking at the absence of a struggle. They are relying almost entirely on visual forensic indicators.
But her family vehemently rejected that assessment, didn't they?
They did. They looked at the exact same scene, the exact same empty house, and drew the complete opposite conclusion.
Which is fascinating.
This raises an important question about how authorities and families interpret the concept of absence.
That's a great point. Law enforcement evaluated the physical space and allowed the absence of violence to dictate an initial theory of, voluntary absence or a low-threat scenario.
Right, they saw a clean house and assumed she just walked away.
But the family, however, evaluated her behavioral baseline. They knew the absence of a struggle didn't supersede the absence of her routine.
Exactly. They knew she would never voluntarily miss seeing her grandchildren.
And they knew the logistical impossibility of her traveling without a vehicle. For the family, the undisturbed nature of the house wasn't proof of peace.
No, it was proof of something else.
It was proof of something highly organized or incredibly sudden. It perfectly highlights the tension between forensic observation and behavioral intuition.
It's a classic clash of perspectives.
The police are searching for evidence of a crime, while the family is screaming that the shattered routine is the evidence.
The family knew that an anchored grandmother doesn't just evaporate.
Right. And that tension, that agonizing gap between what the police could physically document and what the family logically deduced, defined the case for years.
It's heartbreaking, honestly.
The sources describe the investigative efforts following 2019 as extensive and exhausting.
And to be fair, law enforcement did not remain static. Despite that initial no foul play assessment, they executed wide-ranging methodical searches.
They didn't just give up.
No. They analyzed communication records, they interviewed potential witnesses, and applied forensic testing to whatever circumstantial elements they could find.
But without a physical vector to follow, an investigation is forced to operate purely on theory.
It's like they were trying to navigate a maze where someone had erased all the walls.
Well, that's a good way to put it. And that maze remained completely unnavigable until those two hunters stepped onto that deer trail in Plymouth.
Which it brings us full circle.
It does. And it brings up the profound geographic discrepancy of this case. Sandra disappeared from her home in Hanson, Massachusetts.
Yes.
But the physical evidence of her fate was found miles away in the woods of Plymouth. So what does this all mean?
It changes the whole paradigm.
How do we logically reconcile this image of a stranded grandmother in Hanson with a skull fragment found miles away off Route 3 North?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Plymouth discovery completely dismantles that initial assumption of no foul play.
It has to.
It absolutely has to. While authorities haven't officially classified her death as a homicide in the public record just yet, the investigative posture has completely transformed.
They can't rule anything out anymore.
No, they are no longer ruling anything out because the geography demands a darker explanation. It's evolved from a simple missing persons case into a really dark mystery.
Because you have a victim with no vehicle, whose remains are transported miles away to a location adjacent to a major commuter artery.
Yes.
This geographic displacement strongly implies the involvement of a secondary vehicle, and by extension, a secondary person.
Because the physics of the situation require it, she could not have driven herself.
Obviously not.
So someone else's vehicle had to be the vector of transport.
And the specific location where they found her is highly revealing, isn't it?
It's very telling.
The woods right off the breakdown lane of Route 3 North. When you study geographic profiling, breakdown lanes are fascinating because they're transient spaces.
They aren't meant for staying.
Right. They are designed for emergencies, for momentary pauses in high-speed travel.
Exactly. In geographic profiling, investigators look at what's called the least effort principle and the concept of a buffer zone.
Okay, what does that mean?
A perpetrator rarely disposes of evidence in their immediate comfort zone, like their own backyard, but they also rarely travel hours out of their way.
So they look for a middle ground.
Right. And a highway breakdown lane represents a high-risk but high-speed disposal vector.
Because you can get away quickly.
Precisely. It allows a driver to pull over in the dead of night, step a few yards into the tree line, introduce the remains to the environment, and merge back into traffic within 90 seconds.
Wow.
It is a location chosen for expediency and escape, not for careful concealment.
It is an environment optimized for passing through, not for staying. And yet, that fleeting high-speed environment managed to hold on to the central puzzle piece of this case for nearly 7 years in total silence.
7 years. It's almost hard to fathom.
It really is. To this day, investigators are actively pleading with the public for information. Because the authorities know that an operation like this, moving a person from Hanson to Plymouth, does not occur in a vacuum.
Someone knows something.
Someone drove that route. Someone pulled over. Someone possesses the memory of exactly how Sandra Crispo ended up on that silent trail.
The scientific identification was a monumental step, but it is really only half the equation. They have the who and the where, but the how and the why remain totally obscured.
The case is still open.
Very much so. The investigation is still active, relying on the hope that the new geographical focus might jog a memory or maybe break an allegiance that has held firm since 2019.
It is a staggering timeline to reflect on for the listener. What began as a routine, mundane Wednesday in August of 2019, a woman simply being dropped off at her new house, fractured into this agonizing 7-year void.
And it took a completely accidental discovery by 2 hunters.
2 hunters and 14 months of intense microscopic chemistry, just to prove what the family essentially knew within 48 hours.
It serves as a profound validation of that familial intuition, doesn't it?
It really does.
Within 2 days, her family identified the anomaly. They processed the logistical constraints of the missing car. They processed her devotion to her grandchildren, and their behavioral analysis was flawless.
They were right all along.
They accurately diagnosed that a catastrophic event had occurred, and they maintained that conviction for 7 years while waiting for the physical sciences to finally catch up and confirm their reality.
That is an incredibly heavy psychological weight to bear. Knowing the truth of an outcome through pure logic, but lacking the physical evidence to force the rest of the world to see it.
And while the DNA has finally provided a grim confirmation, the story lacks its final chapter.
We still don't know the end.
Right. The gap between the house in Hanson and the tree line in Plymouth is still waiting to be filled.
Which leaves you with a deeply unsettling perspective on the spaces we take for granted.
Oh, absolutely.
I want you to think about the infrastructure of your own daily routine. Think about the commuter highways you drive on, the blurred tree lines you pass at 65 miles an hour.
You never really look at them.
No, you don't. But if a narrow stretch of woods, positioned just feet away from the breakdown lane of a massive thoroughfare like Route 3 North, could silently conceal a dark, complex reality for 7 years.
It makes you wonder.
What other unseen histories and unresolved mysteries are we driving past every single day, completely oblivious to what is waiting just beyond the pavement?